we can still be afraid. I'm afraid a lot, but I do things anyway because I know that I love myself unconditionally and I'm the safe place that I'm looking for. It's not like it's out there. So I feel empowered. And that's what we should be doing when we're shining light on all of these terrible things, helping other people to be safe and to figure that out for themselves. And also saying, no more, we're not going to do this anymore.
Hi there, I'm Jenn Casseta, your Chief Badassery Officer. If you're feeling drained, hesitant, stuck in self-doubt, or you just have a case of the vlogs, the Art of Badassery podcast is here to help you unleash your mojo once and for all. We'll provide you with tips, techniques, and real-life examples of how you can kick ass in all areas of your life. You'll learn how to flex your mental muscles, rise above fears, and turn setbacks into superpowers. So let's enter the dojo and let's get to work. Hello, and welcome to the Art of Badassery podcast. I'm Jenn Casseta, your Chief Badassery Officer, and today I have a really special guest with a very special topic. Her name is Oneika Mays, and she is a mindfulness and meditation teacher, yoga instructor, licensed massage therapist, and author of a new beautiful book called Sit With Me, a no BS journey to mindfulness and meditation. The book was called A Book That Will Speak to You as a Human Who is Worthy of Love. With deep roots in Buddhist and yogic teachings, she brings practical application and authentic connection to every space she enters. She served as a mindfulness coach at Rikers Island for 4 years and can be seen as the mindfulness expert on TBS's Lost Resort. A fellow reality TV show alum, yes?
Yes.
Can't wait to hear about it. What I loved about Oneika's form that she filled out for me was that she said she loves teaching about things that feel overwhelming from an accessible place, like starting a meditation practice, learning to love yourself. Yeah, that could be really hard. Making a change, feeling less alone, dealing with difficult people, even when you are the difficult person, and embracing justice. I really hope that we'll get to touch on all of those topics and more. Oneika, I'd just like to set an intention for the audience for today's episode. So if you are listening, my intention for you for this episode, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed or disconnected from yourself, or if you're secretly wondering if it's too late to make a change or start over or change your life in any way, this conversation is a reminder, right? That just to be able to listen to your intuition, to sit with yourself and listen can be one of the bravest things that we can do. Would you like to add anything to that?
I just absolutely love the idea that you set an intention out loud. Before I teach or speak or have an interview, I actually always ask my ancestors to channel wisdom through me. So I'm speaking from an authentic place. So I'd like to set that intention out loud, asking all of my ancestors, the ones who wish us well, whether they're related to me or not, to help me be a channel for wisdom in our conversation.
That's really beautiful. And I noticed that's a theme in your work as well, being able to tap into our ancestors with wisdom. And I'd love to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have so many things we're going to talk about.
I have to make sure that I remember, but first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. How do I not want to talk to somebody who's a chief officer of badassery? Come on. It was like, yes, let's do it.
Self-appointed.
Doesn't matter. It's still your title.
Yeah.
Even more importantly, that you self-appointed yourself that. That's even more important.
More truth. Before we dig into your story, there was a word that you use in your signature and that came up on your socials a lot, which is Metta, M-E-T-T-A, not like the Facebook. And I had to look it up because I'd never heard of it. So can you share what that means to you, to the world?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because Metta, it's a Pali word and it means loving kindness, or it's another way to say love. And it has roots in Buddhism. And it's one of the 4 qualities of the heart. And the other 3 qualities are compassion, sympathetic joy, like when we're just purely celebrating someone, and then also equanimity. And so when we have these four qualities, the Buddha said that we can become enlightened or we can become free. And so when I started to study loving kindness, it completely shifted my life, broke my heart open. And I felt like I was meeting myself for the first time in some ways, but also remembering, I think, who I've always been as a spirit inside this meat suit that I carry around every day.
The meat suit. Yes, indeed. So how can we share more metta in the world?
So metta it's more than love. It's this idea of love that's expansive, and it starts with ourselves. And when we practice it as a quality, it's this idea of not having any expectations around what love is or expectations for people. It's a sense of ease around everything. So that's how we want to embody it in our lives. But when we're practicing it as a meditation, we offer phrases and we say, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be free. And you start with yourself and then you do that. And then you think about someone you love and someone that you have an easy relationship with. And then you imagine them. And then you say, may you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free. And then you do it for a neutral person, or I call this the stranger. And then you expand even more. And so you've done those three. And then you can get to what we call traditionally is the enemy, but it's often called the difficult person. So then you include that for a difficult person and then for all living beings. And when we do that, we open ourselves up to be in love with ourselves and also connected to the world. And I think it's important to note that it doesn't mean that we don't have boundaries. It doesn't mean that we're okay with people hurting us, but it's an openness around what's happening in the world and in our lives.
I may have jumped the gun there because I definitely wanted to ask you later on if you could share a practice with us to help us become more mindful and practice metta, but there it is. So,
and I'll talk about it a little bit more, the way that you do it. Later on. So I'll give you like a short little practice that you can do and how you can incorporate it in your day if you're not somebody who has like a sitting meditation practice.
Good. Yeah. I'm a huge meditator, and everyone that listens to this podcast knows because I blab about it and bring it up every time I possibly can. But the spreading loving kindness is something I can incorporate even more. And I think more of us can. I hate to should, but the world right now, it feels like everyone's so divided, so angry, so opinionated. And it's really hard for even me to, or let me ask you this, is it hard for you to look at the way some people behave in this world and still practice loving kindness with them?
I write about in my book that I'm baffled by what people do. I'm baffled how people treat each other. I don't have to. Let me back up. I don't think that I am so upset because I actually think these times are precedented. Everyone's, oh my God, these times are so unprecedented. This has been coming for a while. But rather than getting really upset, and we should be angry, we should be motivated to change the world, but we can also be equally as excited about what can come out of all of this. And that actually gives me hope and that keeps me going. So yes, things feel dark, but things are darkest before there's light. And if we think about, if this all goes away and all burns down to the ground, what will come next? So how can we learn how to love ourselves and how can we prepare for a new world?
No words, because that is exactly what I work on believing, right? I can't say I'm 100% there yet, but I do deep down believe that something will be better and that we have the power to create something better. So all of this darkness coming to light, I'm an advocate for women's safety. So from the Epstein files, all that, the rape academies online. I mean, it's mind blowing. And at the same time, if it just kept going in the shadows, then it could only expand and grow from there. If we shine a light on it, now we can be more aware and actually do something about it.
Exactly. It's so easy to get caught up in the fear, which is why what you do is so important and why love is so important. Because when we learn how to feel safe, we aren't overwhelmed by the fear. It doesn't take us under. We can still be afraid. I'm afraid a lot, but I do things anyway because I know that I love myself unconditionally, and I'm the safe place that I'm looking for. It's not like it's out there. So I feel empowered. And that's what we should be doing when we're shining light on all of these terrible things, helping other people to be safe and to figure that out for themselves. And also saying, no more, we're not going to do this anymore. And we're more powerful than we think. But we make ourselves small for all of the reasons, right? We make ourselves small. But I also believe that we are truly responsible and accountable for how we show up in the world. And that's not victim blaming, but I'm saying that we have ways that we can empower ourselves. And when we do that, we're really unstoppable. And then we're like a walking example for other people.
Early on in the next book that I'm writing, I talk about safety. And one of the most powerful lessons that I got from martial arts, it wasn't about how to take someone down. It was learning how to keep myself safe in the world. And of course, I'm not invincible, because I can just hear some guys on the internet right now saying, oh, I could kill her with my pinky, because I get comments like that all the time. It's not that. It's, I can keep my mind, my heart, my body safe, right? From negativity, from harm, etc. Even when the world feels like it's on fire.
And that safety empowers me to make choices that empower more safety and make me feel even stronger. When I feel like, for a long time, I was super closed off. I was sad, and I didn't appear that way. I think I appeared very confident and very strong, but I was always an outsider. I grew up for a long time in a predominantly white neighborhood, and I was the only Black kid in the room, and I was navigating my sexuality. So I put up walls, and I could look, I think, even standoffish, and I was mean, but really my heart was breaking. So when I found Metta and mindfulness and yoga, and I really started to live inside my body and accept all parts of me, because there's plenty of parts of me that I'm like, we really got to work on that, Oneika. That is not the best way to show up in the world, but I can still feel full. And when I do that, I make decisions from a place of responding to the world rather than constantly reacting, thinking this is going to hurt me or this is going to attack me.
Wow. Perfect segue, because I want to know about young Oneika. What was she like? What was this transition in your 40s? But how did you get there? How did you get to Buddhism, yoga, etc.?
It was a long way around, right? I just turned 55 a few weeks ago. And I feel I like the word late bloomer, because I feel like I discovered myself really late and started doing things really late. But I guess everything is on the path when you need to find it. And as a kid, I had friends, but I felt on the outside of life. And I've always felt like I was looking in and I didn't quite belong. And I would mask a lot. I seemed really outgoing and a big extrovert, but I am an introvert. I'm a huge introvert. I need to recharge after being out with people or after speaking a lot or teaching a lot. And I didn't know how to say those things out loud. And I had some sexual trauma in my past as well. And I had to learn how to deal with that. And I didn't talk about that for a really long time. So there were all of these things happening inside me, and I would push them down rather than dealing with them. And I had this wonderful career that I spent a lot of time in retail leadership. And there's a point when I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep the mask on anymore. And I even remember, I don't even think I've told this story out loud before. I was 28, and I remember looking in the mirror, and I was putting on this red lipstick, and I just kept putting it on and putting it on and putting it on, because I was just like, I'm wearing this mask. And I kind of completely fell apart, and then decided I have two ways to go here. I can be somebody who breaks down all of the time, or I can use this opportunity to get well. And I decided to get well.
At 28?
Yeah.
You're saying you're a late bloomer. I think that's pretty ahead of the curve.
Yeah. I started to go to therapy to deal with the trauma and to really look at who I was and decide who I wanted to be going forward.
Yeah.
And then I started practicing yoga a little bit. That was a little bit later in my journey. I would say probably in my mid 30s, I started to practice yoga on a VHS tape. I'm like really dating myself.
Yeah. Hey, I started with Billy Blank's Tae Bo.
I used to do Tae Bo as well. Tae Bo was fantastic.
So good. So good.
So good. And so I found I was always a seeker though as a kid. I didn't grow up in a religious household or spiritual household, but I was always asking, what about God and why am I here? And what am I supposed to be doing? So I think that was the start of my path when I started to go into therapy. I started to really get introspective and look inside and say, what am I about and how do I want to show up in the world?
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of it. And then I had a personal tragedy that happened when I was in my 35. Someone that I was in love with and dated off and on died in Iraq.
Oh
And
gosh.
it
I'm so
completely,
sorry.
yeah, thank you. It completely rocked my world. But in true Oneika fashion, I didn't deal with it. I pushed it down. So I did all of the things that you're not supposed to do when you're grieving. I got engaged to somebody and I got a new job. So I made all big changes.
Sorry. So you were in love with someone who passed, who was killed in a war.
Yeah.
How much later did you get engaged to someone else?
I think it was probably months.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because the relationship I had with him, and I talk about this in the book, it was like this off again, on again kind of relationship, that push and pull. And he had said to me before he left that I was going to have to figure out what I wanted to do when he got back, because we weren't going to keep doing this back and forth thing. And then he didn't come back, and I wasn't dealing with it. And so I made big changes to just pretend that it didn't happen. And then that all fell apart. I canceled my wedding about 3 weeks before I was supposed to get married because I knew this was a terrible mistake. Then I got fired from my job.
Oh, wow.
And I'd never really failed at anything before. Not spectacularly. Yeah, little things, but nothing big like that.
Yeah.
And getting fired humbles you.
Yeah.
It humbles you and you reflect. And I went back to a yoga mat and I started practicing because I felt really lost because I was what I did for a living. And I identified exactly with my career.
So many of us do, though. So is that a bad thing that we identify as our work?
It was no, but it was the only thing I was. I was only a leader. And so not to have that, I lost the social network because I didn't really cultivate a life outside of work. I did everything for work, or I would go away for a week. I'd fly away to Miami for a weekend or something just to rest or party, but it wasn't a life. So I was like meeting Oneika again for the first time, unemployed and broken up, and realizing that I'm really grieving.
It's so interesting because I think women go through this in so many different ways. Either we identify as our work, and then when that job goes, who are you? I spoke to a bunch of women actually, at a conference I just spoke at afterwards at my book signing. And this woman said at first she was a mom and that was like her main identity, even though she was working, but that was her main identity. Then the kids went off to school. Then she was a caretaker for her dad. That was her entire focus. And now I'm 50 something and I don't even know what lights me up. I don't know what makes me happy. Now I have to figure all of that out. So however you identify, mostly that could be scary when it goes away.
And I was completely adrift spiritually and financially and emotionally. I was like, what am I going to do? And at the time, my parents had a house down in South Carolina. And I remember driving down. My mom was someplace else. She was visiting somebody, I think. And I drove down with my dog and I stood in front of my dad and I was like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I just felt really lost.
And this is at 40.
Yeah. 39, 40. And I started going to yoga and I knew I really loved yoga. And I was in a yoga class and this teacher, her name was Catherine. We're in a Manhattan yoga studio, a hot yoga studio at that. The mats are like, there's 60 people in the room. The mats are only 3 inches apart, a hot yoga class. The sweat alone is just horrifying to think about. It sounded like it was raining. There was so much sweat. And I'm sitting in this pose called chair pose. So it's like you're sitting in a chair, your arms are up and your legs are shaking. And she says, you can change or be comfortable, but you can't do both at the same time.
Wow.
And tears started running down my face. It was like my eat, pray, love moment. I knew I wasn't going to go back. And so I decided to do a yoga teacher training. And that changed my life because while I knew I would be a yoga teacher, I was going to live my practice because yoga isn't something I do. It's how I live. It was like, it changed everything for me. I was meeting myself for the first time. I was interacting with my community. I was making friends that were outside of what I did for a living. And I felt so full and I felt so happy. And I also got a little addicted to the practice because I was chasing that high of feeling good and I hurt my shoulder and then I couldn't practice. So I started sitting and doing more meditation. And that's when another pathway opened up. I'm like, oh, this is what it's about. It's about me meeting myself and being still. That was another opening. And then I did a meditation teacher training and just kind of kept going.
Wow. I love that story. It reminds me of my martial arts journey. I was obsessed. People would say I was addicted or I was in a cult. It was really full on, but it was about, and it kind of sounds corny but it was about living this way, the way, literally.
Yeah, the way, the path. It was about that. And I needed to do that at the time. It was important. And then I'm an all or nothing kind of person. I used to live my life at the edges of things. I was either in it 300% or I was doing absolutely nothing. And I needed to understand the middle way. I needed to understand what it meant to be moderate in things. And so yoga taught me that, because you go too far, you hurt yourself and you're like, oh, won't do that again. And then you learn that balance, you learn where your edges are. And the practice did that for me. The physical practice of yoga did that for me. And then I started to appreciate that it's so much more than that. And when I was really sitting and then I decided to become a meditation teacher, I was like, this is about living your life, however you're living it. Not if you're a yoga teacher, if you're a teacher at a school, if you're a nurse, if you're working in a store, you can be this person who shows up, who doesn't have to fix or change the world around them, but we can change how we respond to it.
Yeah, beautiful. Talk to me about Rikers Island. And for those of you out there that are not from New York or never heard of Rikers Island, explain its reputation, if you will.
So Rikers Island is a jail. You may have seen it when you watch Law and Order. If you watch Law and Order, the jail that they're in is always at Rikers. So they're talking about Rikers Island. And it's a jail, different than prison. Jail is where you go when you're awaiting trial or you're serving a sentence of less than a year. Prison, you go when you're already sentenced. And Rikers is one of the most notorious jails in the country, aside from Cook County in Chicago and LA. And it's huge. There are 11 actual jail facilities on the island. It is actually an island. And I volunteered as a trauma-informed meditation and yoga teacher for about 6 years. And then I worked there full time as the jail's first mindfulness coach for almost 5.
Oh, wow.
I helped to spearhead a wellness program inside the women's facility with an incredible acupuncturist and a wellness coach to help people deal with anxiety, insomnia, and somatic issues. And I was a full-time employee on the island, but I worked with a hospital system called New York Health and Hospitals. And it changed my life going there as a volunteer, and became even more intense when I started working there full-time.
I can't imagine. I literally cannot imagine. I heard you on another podcast talking about just the sensory overload of, explain what it was like when you first showed up.
Jail is loud. And I've taught in the men's jails too, and I've taught in other jails in Manhattan. But it's really loud, and I think that's what people maybe can't really appreciate. Yes, there's fighting and there's yelling, but there's noise, whether it's a TV that's turned all the way up or the sound of keys jangling that had 50 keys on a keychain, and people who are laughing and having a good time, or people who are arguing and yelling at each other, and the phones there like 100 years old, so push button or rotary phones. So there's that annoying ringing sound, the buzzing of doors. And sometimes it's all happening at the same time when you're inside a housing area. And it was awful inside my body, especially because I had been accustomed to this idea of peace. So I was like, yeah, this makes sense to bring this in this environment, but how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
And I realized again, there aren't safe places out there, right? We can think of places as being safe, but I needed to find that safe place inside myself and then talk to other women about finding that with their own practice when I was there. And it changed me forever.
Yeah.
Because being inside that environment, especially as a Black queer woman, being inside a place that's full of mass incarceration and a disproportionate of women, the way that women have been incarcerated over the past 30 years is terrifying. I think the number is around a 700% increase of women being incarcerated. Most of the women that I met had some kind of intimate partner violence in their background. And
So tell me, was it a lot of them are there for self-defense because they're being abused?
exactly. Yes. I can't tell you how many women I met were there because they were defending themselves from their abuser. There were a lot of trans women who I met who were also protecting themselves. And the environment isn't just physically violent, it's psychologically violent and it's emotionally violent. It's full of judgment, us and them. This person's bad because they did this and that person did that and I didn't do that. Officers are judging people, staff is judging people. Everybody's hurting there, everybody's in pain. It's sad. The sadness is the overwhelming thing. I think people think about jail or a place like Rikers and they think about fear, and there is fear for people who are incarcerated. There's also a lot of sadness and a lot of grief.
Yeah.
And there are actually moments too of silence, like in the hallways. And that feels almost haunted too, that you're walking down a hallway one day that's completely silent, like all of the pain and violence that's happening around you.
Do you remember any stories in particular that stood out, like either women or men that you were working with that had breakthroughs through meditation or yoga?
Yeah, people did. People had breakthroughs. There was one woman who, she was young. I should say young woman. She was, I don't even think 25, and she'd been justice impacted, which means she'd been involved with the justice system of some sort since she was about 14. So in and out, and had a really tough life. And she was a fighter. She liked to fight a lot. And she was recommended by one of my peers to come try meditation. And she walked in like fire. And she was like, I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to be this angry. And I want you on my team to help me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really, I was like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. And some people have been reluctant, but she wanted to do this. And then realized what a struggle it was going to be to do it, because we default into our patterns and they become easy. And when something becomes challenging, we default to what we normally do. But I'll never forget, we had started to try Metta and loving kindness, and she loved that because she would use her brother often as her loved one to send Metta to, because you choose somebody. And she had a problem with somebody in her housing area. She ran to my office one day. I wasn't even scheduled to see her. She was supposed to see somebody else. And she said, Miss Oneika, this woman got on my nerves today. She didn't say woman. She said something else. And she said, and you know what? I normally would have punched her in the face, but I did tree pose instead. We high-fived it out. And that's what it's about. People think like you learn meditation or yoga and you're going to be like Buddha on the mountaintop or Buddha in a cave. It's about meeting your life when life happens, and your practice is there for you. So sometimes you aren't punching somebody in the face.
Oh my God, this is so simpatico with my book coming out, The Sensei, because it's all about becoming like a sensei, which I define as calm and confident, relaxed and ready to make the next right move. And you change over time. You become less reactionary, more responsive, and you use discernment in that moment of how do I want to respond in this moment versus just, I don't know. I grew up in I love my family so much, but there was a lot of anger, and this Italian American, it was just how it was done. It was just like everyone yells, everyone screams. It's normal. Is it though? Does it have to be? And I had to unlearn ways of being in relationship. I wound up marrying someone who was much more calm and more reserved in that way. And I was like, wow, this is different. Okay, there's a different way of being. And then obviously through my meditation practice, I definitely saw that, or I saw that I would like to change into a more calm person, calm, confident, relaxed, and ready. Anyway.
It's the pause, right?
Yeah.
That's what I had to learn. I was really quick to be sarcastic, like that was my defense mechanism. Because sarcasm was something in my family that, you know.
And I think it's an East Coast thing too.
Oh, it's definitely. You gotta be ready for that quick comment. Dirty Jersey. You're ready to rock with anything at any moment.
Yeah.
Part of that's cultural, But part of it, I think, is also generational trauma. And I had to unlearn some things and realize that I didn't always have to be on the defense. And not everybody was out to get me. When
This ding, I have to highlight that because that was the one thing my husband always would say. He's your family. Everyone, it seems like they're always thinking someone's out to get them. And I'm like, I know.
And and I think that kind of thing is also a generational wound. I know as the descendant of enslaved folks of this country, that wound is there all of the time. And a lot of Black parents weren't as affectionate or calm. And that's handed down because they were trying to protect their children, also not trying to get too close to them in case they were sold off. So they had that bond. So those things get passed down. And I didn't want to be like that. Love almost was, it wasn't outright said, but it felt like a weakness. And I'm sensitive. I'm an empath. And these were things that I wouldn't even have language for when I was younger. But I was like, oh, Onika's really sensitive, or there she is crying again, all of these things. So when I got my practice, I started to accept myself and unlearn some of the things and ask questions about why am I really like this? And then also take ownership, because things happened to me and then I would start to respond, but that didn't mean I couldn't be accountable for my own behavior. And that became really powerful too, and empowering at the same time.
Yeah. Personal responsibility I think it's a touchy subject because people don't like to take personal responsibility for everything in their lives. So can you dig into that a little bit more?
Yeah. And I think this triggers people. And I have to be responsible for who I am. Things may have happened to me, but it's how I respond to them is my responsibility. There's a Dharma teacher, his name is Mamarod Owens, and he says, everybody wants to be free, but nobody wants to do the work of getting free. And the work of getting free and the work of learning how to be a person in the world that you can feel proud of or that you feel empowered is work. And it means you have to unlearn things. And it means that when things happen, you take responsibility for your part in it. It means you have to learn how to apologize. It means that you need to learn how to forgive people so you're not holding on to the energy of something that happened to you. And when you do that, you can truly become free. And then your heart is open, and then you're not afraid to love because you know that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay.
And what role does self-love play in that?
Self-love is where it began. When I was talking about Metta in the beginning, when we do it as a practice, we start with ourselves, but we have to start with ourselves. And I write about in my book that I wanted to do everything that I could to skip around that part and jump to the loved one. But we have to start with ourselves. We have to learn how to model this for ourselves, because if we aren't, we can build up resentments. We can be angry about things, and we can think that, we start to suffer because I didn't get something that I wanted or something I got that I didn't want. But if we learn how to love ourselves, every part of ourselves, even the parts that we don't like, we're whole and we don't feel so constricted. I think this is so important for women. We don't feel so tight. I used to think that I couldn't have all of these feelings and I would feel like there was a corset around my waist. Mindfulness changed that. I used to think of things that happen as like a bowl, and I could have shame. I could have disappointment, but I could also have joy. I could have laughter. I could have bliss. As long I could make the bowl bigger rather than thinking only a couple of things could fit in the bowl. And that's what self-love is about, acknowledging that you're more than one thing. You're capable of holding multiple truths at the same time.
I love that. When I think of that, when I have gone through really difficult times, like losing my dad or whatever, I felt like those times in our lives, they expand our capacity to hold difficult things, even for other people, right? I can hold more in general because of those things and not in spite of them. And now I just have a different word. I have a bowl instead of capacity.
Yeah. And I got the bowl. Apparently, it's like an acting exercise. A lot of folks that dip their head, like they're pouring out everything they don't need into a bowl. And then when someone taught me that, I had this image of all of my different emotions in the bowl and the bowl getting bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned your dad's transition, and my dad died about 6 years ago. And that was another pivotal point for me of growth. and development and love, and really in recognizing, like, how am I going to respond in this moment? How am I going to be with it? And because I had a mindfulness practice, I didn't chase away any of the feelings, because in fact, I said when I got the phone call, let me be with everything, because this only happens once in your life. And despite what I'm feeling, I know 20 years from now, I'm going to want to remember how I felt at this moment rather than pushing it away.
Beautiful.
Meditation did that for me.
Yeah. So can we talk about logistics? No, there's like practicality. What does mindfulness practice look like in your life?
So mindfulness looks a couple of ways. As a quality is the way that I live. I try to show up and be present with what's going on without feeling a need to fix, manipulate, or change it. And I try to observe what's happening without judgment. That gives me an opportunity, if something arises that triggers me or pulls at me, I can pause. And that gives me an opportunity to respond rather than react. So that's how it shows up in my life. Because mindfulness, as you know, is a quality. But then as a meditation, when I'm practicing a mindfulness meditation, I notice when I wander off, I say, oh, that's interesting. And then I come back to myself as an anchor. Some people use the breath to come back to. I sometimes like to hold my hand in a fist and I come back to my fist over and over again. Sometimes I need something sensory. So I return over and over again, because mindfulness isn't about saying, oh, I'm present. It's actually recognizing when you're distracted. We're never more mindful than we are in the moment when we say, oh, I wandered off. You're never more present than in that moment.
Wow.
That's the practice, is recognizing the distraction.
Interesting. So I always thought, like, I think still, I don't know, but tell me if this makes sense to you. Like, mindfulness is like an umbrella. And then under that umbrella, there are different practices to be more mindful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the goal of mindfulness, or I don't know if it has to have a goal, but would be to like widen that gap that we talked about, where you get to choose your response to things. And then like meditation is a practice under that umbrella. Does that sound right?
Meditation is the umbrella, and mindfulness is one of the meditations underneath meditation. Because meditation we define as brain concentration and training the mind. So we're training the mind with meditation, and mindfulness is a kind of meditation, like Metta is a kind of meditation as well. And then there's all kinds of Tonglen is when we breathe in suffering of everyone and we transmute it and breathe it out into light and joy for people, which is also, I think, a really beautiful practice.
That is.
But we can be mindful in our lives. Like washing your hands is a great time to practice mindfulness, noticing how the water feels on your hands. What does the soap feel like? Eating. Yes, is a huge one. Mindful listening. Are you listening so you can answer somebody? Or are you listening so you can really hear what someone is saying to you, so you can receive it?
That one I see come up so often. People are just waiting to jump in. And it's hard for me to, I do it too as a podcast host. I'm like waiting to see with my next question, but it's a practice and I'm just trying to get better at that. How can we do that? Because that one I really think is a big one.
I think it's finding ways in your daily life to practice mindfulness, so you learn how to do it when life comes at you. When people try to do it sometimes as a meditation, you can get frustrated because you're like, oh, this is really hard. So if you're starting a seated practice, you want to start with 2 or 3 minutes. You're not going to go try to sit for a half hour if you've never done a mindfulness meditation before. So find an activity that you do every day and set your intention to practice that mindfully. That is a way that you will be practicing mindfulness as a moving meditation every single day. You can brush your teeth mindfully. And that means when you start to make a list or think about what you're going to wear or what's going to happen in the shower, that's not being mindful. You recognize that you're distracted, and then you don't punish yourself for it. Another key part of mindfulness is not being judgmental and releasing judgment. So we're like, okay, I'm brushing my teeth and, oh, you know what? I need to make coffee. Oh, I got distracted. Let me come back to just paying attention to my teeth. So it's focusing on something. And then when you stop focusing on it, noticing it and returning again and again, and know that you'll do it 20 times. You might brush your teeth for 4 minutes and be distracted 15 times and that's okay. That's the point. It's
Beautiful.
when we don't notice. How often are you driving for a half hour and you don't even remember the half hour that went by? That's terrifying to think.
Because you're just living in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Distracted.
absolutely. And I think the commonality between what we both teach and practice would be getting folks to get out of the looping in their head, more connected to their body, their breath, and the present moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And pausing.
Would you want to walk us through a 1-minute practice?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that before we start to wrap.
Yeah. So you can start first by a little movement to settle. And then choose your seat, right? Choose how you're going to sit rather than just letting position choose you. You make a choice and you can sit upright, but not uptight. And not let the shoulders drop. And if you'd like your eyes to close, they can close for a moment. And you might notice that you just take a breath on your own. Nothing fancy. Your body breathes on its own. And I invite you to put your hands together, just resting in your lap. And that's going to be your anchor. And we're going to be silent for 15 seconds. And in 15 seconds, you're going to get distracted and come back to paying attention to your hands. And we'll start now. It's about 15 seconds. So if you wandered off, you can open your eyes and come back. It's a 15-second practice.
And I feel refreshed.
Yeah.
I hope everyone else out there did as well. Is there one last thing before we get to our rapid fire questions? First of all, thank you for that practice. And honestly, it really can be that simple and that fast, right?
There's so much going on, and it can feel overwhelming to think, oh, I have to learn how to do this thing.
Yeah.
You can do that before you put the keys in the car and say, okay, I got 15 seconds to settle.
Yeah.
Before you wake up, get out of bed, before you go to sleep. We can find that time.
Multiple times per day. Everyone has 15 seconds. And I say, if you don't, you should reevaluate your life choice.
Absolutely.
Sorry, not sorry.
No, there's a Zen proverb that says you should meditate for 15 minutes a day. And if you don't have time, you should meditate for 45 or something like that. Yeah.
It's the top of my chapter 2. Bingo. Okay. Anything else you want to say about the book, just really quickly before we get into the rapid fire? Like, who is this book for? Why do we need it?
This book is for people who feel lost and alone. It's for people who felt like, you know what, I'm seeking something, but I'm not sure what, and I don't know where to start. This is the book for you.
Love it. And I think that's a lot of folks right now. Okay. Rapid fire. So quick questions, Oneika. What's your morning routine?
I first offer gratitude in the morning before I do anything. And then I put my feet on the floor and then I walk right into the bathroom to brush my teeth.
Okay. Most overrated wellness trend?
Mindfulness, the way that it can be taught as like a gimmick, I think. I think that people are really taking mindfulness to a place where they shouldn't. People who shouldn't be teaching it, but that's another story.
Favorite meditation app or no app at all?
Insight Timer.
I love it. If you could have a drink with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and what's in your cup?
Stevie Wonder. I don't even have to think about it. It's Stevie Wonder. And in my cup is a glass of Lambrusco.
Love that. Stevie Wonder and Lambrusco. They come back so funny. I love it. Okay. Your favorite nonfiction self-help book besides your own?
All About Love, New Visions by Bell Hooks. Incredible book.
Okay. I'm going to check that out for sure. Your favorite hype song that you would add to the Art of Badassery playlist?
One Mic by Nas. I listen to it all of the time before I have to go speak. Yeah.
I'm so glad it's coming on the list. Okay, good. And fill in the blank, badassery means
Badassery means showing up as yourself authentically without apology.
chills. Okay. Oneika, thank you so much. Tell everyone where we can find you.
You can find me at my website, oneikamays.com. You can find me on Instagram at Oneika Mays and Substack at Oneika Mays. Keep it real simple.
Yeah. And make sure you go out and grab a copy of Sit With Me. Sit With Me. It's such a beautiful cover. I love it. It's actually what drew me to research Oneika and what she's all about. And honestly, I invite people on this podcast that I want to be friends with. So I hope we get to meet in person one day soon. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. You know, I love you so much. Wait, there's a saying that you say on your, it's love me, love you.
Oh, yep. I love me, I love you, and I love us.
I love me, I love you, I love us. Thank you, everyone. Please make sure you're following this podcast, leave a review, and share this with a friend you know that could use some mindfulness in their life and metta. See you next time on the Art of Badassery podcast.